Hello, I'm Crispin.
I'm Charlene. First question. Is poker ethical, Crispin?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So the first part is what is ethical? Is it something that is adding something to society or to people, or something that is harmful to people? And of course, poker is gambling. So if you think that gambling is unethical, it's going to be difficult to persuade you that poker is ethical. However, I don't think that gambling is unethical. It's your relationship to gambling. That is the question. So if you're gambling as a form of entertainment, it's in addition to all the other things that you have obligations for, and it's discretionary spending, then it's perfectly fine, a healthy thing to do. However, if the money that you're spending belongs to other people or is needed for dependents or other responsibilities, then of course it is a negative thing to be engaging in not just gambling, but any form of ephemeral entertainment. Poker itself is not uniquely negative in that space. In fact, it's a competitive sport where everybody has the same odds in terms of what cards are being dealt, what will come out on the board. And it's a competitive sport in that skill level, if combined with enough volume, will separate the winning players from the losing players. So there's nothing unethical about the game of poker itself. Of course, there are unethical practices. So
Cheating.
cheating, yes, exactly. Angle shooting, that sort of thing. But provided everyone's playing the game in good faith, playing fairly, then there's no problem. Some people might say that the world of poker, the ecosystem of poker, is somewhat parasitic in that it's not producing anything. It's a sort of negative sum game where money is flowing in different directions from one person to another. The only activity is the employment offered for people running the game, and also perhaps some tourism if you're running major events and bringing in tourist dollars and things like that. That has some economic benefit, but it's not producing food. It's not producing clothes. It's not providing services, medical services,
You're exchanging
education.
hands for hours and hours.
Exactly. So as a profession, people might say that it's not the most productive thing, except that you could use that argument for a whole range of things that we wouldn't look at in a pejorative way. So race car driving or being a professional basketball player or any other competitor, that's the financial system surrounding that is quite different, but the productivity is the same. People are showcasing their skills in a competitive way, and as a consequence of being rewarded for that financially. Poker, being a game of skill, requires an enormous amount of effort, of study, of training, and of high levels of accountability as well, because it's often your own money that you're losing. So in order to survive in that world, you need to constantly second guess yourself and review hands and go through with others and coaching and so forth. So it's not like it's easy. It's not like it's a swindle. It's something that people do through hard work. And like anything that's done with hard work, it can be quite rewarding. But is poker unethical? No, I don't think it is. And is it ethical? Is it a positive thing? Well, I think in the form of entertainment, anything that is not actively unethical is ethical.
So in order to be a good player in poker is that you need to win. And to win, someone must lose. And so is it ethical to play with somebody that clearly has a gambling problem, for instance? Is that ethical?
Okay, so again, you know how I mentioned that there are things that can be unethical in the practice of poker. So, for example, cheating and angle shooting and the like. Taking advantage of somebody who has a problem is probably the borderline circumstance of where things can come into. That's a very, very good question, because on the one hand, people would say nobody forces you to sit down at the poker table and play, and anybody can lose. I might be playing with someone who has a quote unquote gambling problem, but like I could still lose money to that person. That's not necessarily itself my responsibility. And is it the responsibility of the person who has a gambling problem to address the gambling problem that they have? That would be the attitude, I think, of a lot of companies, for example, a lot of businesses, casinos, saying, look, we don't know the financial circumstances of every individual, and therefore it's up to them to address that. We offer options for people to exclude themselves. And I think most people would say that's not really enough, that there's not only just a responsible consumption of gambling, but a responsible service of gambling. And so there are people that can play the game who are on tilt, who are perhaps drunk or whatever. And I don't think that playing those people is unethical, because there is a certain level of personal responsibility. There are times at the table where I'm playing and I shouldn't really be playing. And I don't feel like people took advantage of me when they take my money in those circumstances. At the same time, if you know someone has a serious gambling problem and they're wanting to play, then I think there is a serious moral dilemma there. I don't feel comfortable taking people's money in that situation. And I think it's not very good for the game for that to be allowed to happen, because it adds to the negative reputation, and a reputation that at the macro level I don't think is deserved, but there are individual cases that it presents. And there are certain things that you can sort of tell. So if someone is wanting to borrow lots of money from other people at the table, and sometimes that happens because they just didn't bring enough money, and they're loaded and they don't care. They just need like the credit or whatever. And that's normal gambling, poker stuff. That's not a problem. But sometimes people are like, oh, I'm expecting money to come in soon. Can I play
so
now?
That's flag.
Pay? It's clear, there are certain things you're like, hang on a second, this person actually doesn't have the money to play. They shouldn't be playing. And taking money from them that they don't have is unethical, I think. But at the same time, it's a shared responsibility. It's not all on the person who is playing. It's probably more on the person running the game. So the casino, the staff, the dealers, that they have a responsibility to keep an eye on the flow of the game and make sure that they're providing a service that is done in an ethical and responsible way.
Yeah, and would you say the same then for people who are a bit tipsy?
No, because poker is not just about winning, right? And poker is about social aspect, people coming together, chatting, talking about life, and drinking can be a part of that. So people play for all kinds of reasons. And so just because you're tipsy and having a drink doesn't mean, A, that you're playing really badly. It might actually loosen you up and reduce some of your anxiety at the table, and that can make you play better if it's kept within limited range. But also, some people come because they want to sit down and chat and have a drink and play a few cards. They're not there because they want to become professional poker players who are, putting their entire life savings on a bankroll. They're just coming because they want a night of poker, and drinking is a perfectly normal part of that. And if someone's drunk, perhaps, again, players, dealers, whatever, might mention to them, it's like, hey, do you want to lay off a bit, and give them the option, be like, you still feel comfortable playing. But that specific situation, I don't think is a negative. I think people of all walks can drink and play poker.
Okay.
I wouldn't recommend it just for your win rate as a professional player. Like, it's not, having a glass of wine or a beer is fine. In fact, it might encourage other people to play with you a bit more because you're obviously being socially engaged. But obviously don't get drunk at the table. Don't start knocking back shots. And
the only thing that makes me uncomfortable with this ethics question is, like, clearly it's not a win-win situation. People are winning and losing money all the time. So, and obviously if you have skill, you've got an edge, then there will be people out there that consistently lose money. And then because it's such a complicated game, people think they will win once or that kind of thing. Like, there's a huge biases. But then I kind of see your point that people go into the game with different expectations and different needs. That is more than just money. I'm not super convinced, but like...
Well, I mean, take for example, billionaires who play poker, okay? They're billionaires, and they don't go to the local casino and just find other bad billionaires to play. They often actively seek out the best players in the world. People who are not only have a huge edge against them, but against other professionals. And they do it because they want the challenge of playing against really good players. The fact that they consistently lose money is not harmful because they have an abundance of wealth, and what they're getting out of it is essentially very expensive poker lessons. They're getting the experience of playing against the best of the best. And there's not actually any other situation where you can easily do that. Like, you can't just get in a race car and drive against Michael Schumacher, or get in the football match and against Messi and Ronaldo. You just can't do that. No matter how much money you've got, it's not really going to happen. But you can sit down with the best poker players and play a game of poker if you've got the stakes. So that's not the actual losing aspect. As long as you're getting something from it and it's not undermining your quality of life, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a pure form of entertainment. And particularly, and I'll stick with this example a bit more, if you're at that pointy end of wealth and influence and so forth, there's probably not that much that still gets under your skin and gives you a bit of stress and gives you a bit of excitement and difficulty. And that might be a great outlet for these people to be actually like, oh, I can finally feel a bit of pressure again. I can finally feel like something's on the line, as opposed to everything being too easy, which I think is a bit of a problem for the modern world. Things can be a bit easy. And so people do that. And then again, there are retirees who just go to the local casino because it's a perfectly safe environment. They don't want to gamble on the pokie machines or anything like that. They want to talk to actual people and engage and feel active. And they're in a place they're not going to get robbed or anything like that. Nothing bad's going to happen. There's security everywhere. That's a great opportunity for these people to have this social engagement.
So turning it to you guys, is poker ethical? Did you kind of agree with Crispin's point? At what stage does poker become unethical? And does it contribute positively to the world? Leave your thoughts and comments down below. We'd love to hear them. Otherwise, hit the like and goodbye.